The survival constraint says, I remind you, that cash inflows must be at least as large as cash outflows, or as Stigum says, the bank must settle with the Fed at the end of the day. So the precise institutional mechanism that embodies that constraint is the requirement to end the day with non-negative balances at the Fed. Now, the importance of this constraint is maybe, to get clear on that, to understand the way in which this constraint does not actually bind during the day. So I want to start by talking about overdrafts at the Fed. Okay. So let me erase some of this. When I was just a lad, I was a graduate student, I spent a summer once at the Board of Governors. This was the summer of 1986. And it was a long time ago. I was a graduate student. And they were all worried about daylight overdrafts. Okay, so, and they were trying to figure out what policy they should use they were worried about the credit exposure of the Fed during the day. Now I'm going to show you what that's all about here. Okay, so what could happen, and it still happens, but, so this isn't antiquated. Here's the Fed, and here's two different banks. The Bank A needs to pay Bank B, okay, because some customer of Bank A is paying some customer of Bank B. But Bank A doesn't actually have any reserves in its account at the Fed because it's already paid them out. But that doesn't stop it. It can just run an overdraft, okay? And that's essentially a loan. And to what the Fed lends to Bank A is reserves, and it lends them by creating them out of thin air. And it credits them to the account of Bank B. So Bank B is happy. It feels like it's been paid. Okay? It was worried about Bank A. Bank A owed it some money, and it said, please pay me. But now the Fed owes me some money, and hey, that's money. So it's different. I've been paid. I now have reserves. I've been paid. Bank B knows nothing about this little arrangement, okay, that Bank A hasn't in fact paid. Okay, Bank A owes the Fed money here. And this is the grease, this is the credit grease that makes the payment system go during the day. Okay, that banks that don't have sufficient reserves are allowed to run some overdrafts on the balance sheet of the Fed. This all happens electronically, FedWire, and so forth. But you can see how the Fed might be anxious because this is a daylight overdraft. It's a promise basically to settle at the end of the day, to come up with these reserves by the end of the day. And what if you don't? What if you don't? Well, the Fed has a what if you don't. It says, if you don't, really, I will, because I'm sort of forced to, lend you that money overnight, okay? But I will lend you that money overnight at 100 basis points over the Fed funds rate. So I'm going to charge you a lot for that, okay? To try to encourage you to clear your balance with me by the end of the day, find somebody who will lend you this money at less than 100 basis points over the Fed funds rate. Got that? So the Fed, if it said, you have to pay me or you're dead, okay, then the banks may say, okay, I'm dead. Okay, that's not, and the Fed is trying to protect the payment system. So it really can't say, pay me or you're dead. Okay, it says, pay me or you owe me a lot more money than you really want to, and make the incentive. Now sometimes you can't find a counterparty and then they wind up paying that rate. Okay, so that sometimes happens. So this is part of the payment system. These are the overdrafts. And the whole idea is that this is meant to collapse down to zero at the end of the day by Bank A getting payments from somebody else and then clearing this overdraft. But there's a credit expansion during the day and then contraction at the end of the day. Okay, so this is like what I was telling you, how the system works this way at all levels of the hierarchy and all time scales. And this is the intraday time scale. There's this credit expansion to grease the wheels of the payment system during the day. This credit expansion happens, so this is the elasticity part. This happens not only on the balance sheet of the Fed, but also on the balance sheet of a private clearinghouse called CHIPS. Do I call these Bank A and Bank B too? Yes, I do. Okay. Make this consistent. CHIPS is not the Fed. CHIPS is a clearinghouse. We talked about clearinghouses last time, so you know about that. It's a mutual organization of a group of banks that are collecting their due tos and due froms during the day, and then they're settling them at the end. What they settle in at the end of the day is Fedwire. Okay, so there's a private credit expansion as well during the day that collapses at the end of the day down, and you have to pay on Fedwire. Okay, and you can have an overdraft on Fedwire for a little while, and then you have to pay that. So there's two layers of credit expansion that I'm talking. One is sort of the public one that's on the balance sheet of the Fed, and here's the private one on the balance sheet of CHIPS. Okay. So the way CHIPS works is that every morning, member banks make deposits of collateral of some kind. So there's a credit here. You could think of CHIPS as a kind of a bank. Okay, and then if Bank A, and Bank A may have spent all its deposits or something like that, and so it can borrow from the clearinghouse during the day. So you have here, the analog to this overdraft here would be due to CHIPS. It needs to make a payment to Bank B, so it notifies CHIPS that it needs to make a payment to CHIPS. CHIPS keeps track of that, due from A, and it tells CHIPS that it's due to Bank B. Bank B can put this as a due from CHIPS, and here due to B. Okay? So this is the analogous private payment system thing to what I was showing you over there. CHIPS is not the Fed. It's not a central bank. It's a private clearinghouse. But it's the same, the point here to emphasize is the same elasticity is going on the balance sheet of CHIPS during the day, intraday clearing. And they're also worried about the credit exposure because ultimately, if Bank A is unable to fulfill on this payment, all the members of CHIPS are supposed to pay B, because the whole point of this is that B no longer has an obligation from Bank A, it has an obligation from the clearinghouse, which is all the other banks that are members, and that's better money. It's not the same as having an obligation of the Fed, that's even better, okay, but it's certainly better. And so I can act as if I'm going to get that money and go on and make other payments to other people pretending that I'm going to get that money. Okay? The Fed is a little different than that. This is actual money. So it's not like pretending I'm going to get that money. I have this money. This is a real-time gross settlement system. Real-time gross settlement system. Meaning, once you have these reserves, this is money. You don't have to wait till the end of the day and net it off against something. It's money now. It's money now, this very moment that you get that electronic payment. That's not true of CHIPS. CHIPS is something that you can present at the end of the day at the clearinghouse, and then hopefully it will be money and it will be settled on Fedwire.